Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and technically doing a Spirit of the Pharaoh deck profile. So I'm really excited to do some for you guys because this deck is an extremely nostalgic deck that I've included all sorts of spicy tech cards in this build for you guys. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards. Like getting your name description in a single video, getting a signed cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're playing a single copy of Spirit of the Pharaoh. You only need a single copy of this card because you have to summon it off the first Sarcophagus's effect. And this card has the ability that when this card is special summoned, you get to special summon up to 4 level 2 or lower zombie normal monsters from your graveyard to your side of the field, just to basically swarm the board with all sorts of zombies to help you go in for game. We then play 3 copies of Meli. Meli is an amazing 3-of in this build and such a cool card to be able to play alongside Spirit of the Pharaoh, because this card has the ability, if you control King Sarcophagus, you can special summon this card to your side of the field from your graveyard. Plus, this card can search King Sarcophagus by sending itself and another card from your hand to the graveyard. It will instantly search out your copy of King Sarcophagus and let you draw a card, which is so cool. We then play a single copy of Happy. Happy is really good as a 1-of in the build, just to have as an additional name, so we can go in for our rank 8 plays. We then play a single copy of Blessing of Horus. This card is really good as a 1-of in the build to basically just summon out to your side of the field as an additional name. We then play 3 copies of Unizombie. Unizombie is really good as a 3-of in the build to basically just use this card as a walking Foolish Burial to help us get our zombie monsters into the graveyard so we can bring them back with Spirit of the Pharaoh. We then play 2 copies of Mizuki. Mizuki is definitely a 2-of in the build because this card is actually a Monster Reborn. You just banish this card in the graveyard to actually revive back one of your zombie monsters to your side of the field, which is amazing. We then play a single copy of Doom King Baller Drop. Doom King is a really good boss monster in this deck as well, alongside your copy of Spirit of the Pharaoh, because we are playing Zombie World in this deck. This card has a great ability during the standby phase. If there's a card in the field zone and this card's in the grave, you can actually special summon this card in defense position, and this card is also a banish and a negate, which is absolutely crazy. We then play a single copy of Al Ghul Mazrah. Al Ghul Mazrah is really interesting in this deck as a 1-of because this card has the ability if a zombie monster you control would be destroyed by battle back artifact, you can banish this card from your hand or grave instead, and if it's banished from the hand or grave, you can special summon this card in defense, then you can reduce its level by 1, which is a really cool effect to be able to do to basically just use this card to protect your plays. We then play a single copy of Banshee. Banshee is great in this deck as a 1-of to basically help us get to our copy of Zombie World, which is just so cool to be able to do. We then play a single copy of Gozuki. Gozuki is great in this deck as a 1-of as well, to basically just use this card to send the exact card we need to the graveyard. We then play a single copy of Mad Mauler. Mad Mauler is great as a tuner in this deck to basically just help us go in for our synchro plays, as this card's name becomes Plague Spreader Zombie while it's on the field or in the graveyard, and if this card's in the graveyard, you can target a level 6 or higher monster you control, reduce its level by 2, and if you do special summon this card, also the player who summoned it cannot special summon monsters except for zombies, while this card is face up in the monster zone, which is not that big of a deal, as that's usually all we're summoning anyways. We then play a single copy of Glow Up Bloom. Glow Up Bloom is a great 1-of in deck to basically just use this card to bring out your copy of Doom King Baller Trot, which is so amazing, because if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can banish the card from the graveyard to add a level 5 or higher zombie monster from your deck to your hand, but if you control Zombie World, you can actually special summon it from the deck instead, which is an amazing ability to instantly get your copy of Doom King to your side of the field. We then play 3 copies of Clown Zombie. Clown Zombie is actually the highest attack point level 2 zombie in the entire game. So you basically use this card to be able to summon this card back to your side of the field using your copy of Spirit of the Pharaoh, because it's such a nostalgic card and it's the highest attack point vanilla level 2 zombie in the entire game. We then also play 3 copies of Pharaoh's Servant. Pharaoh's Servant is really cool as a 3-of in the build to basically just use with your copy of Spirit of the Pharaoh, so that you can basically have a bunch of monsters that you can potentially summon back to your side of the field to help you OTK. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to start with a single copy of Foolish Burial. Foolish Burial is great as a one in the deck to help you get the exact monster you need in the graveyard. With my single copy of the second sarcophagus, you got to play this card so you can summon out the Spirit of the Pharaoh, but you never really want to draw this card. It's a little bit of a brick, but it's amazing in this deck as one of to help you summon out your copy's Spirit of the Pharaoh. With my single copy of the third sarcophagus, this card is the exact same reason as your copy of the second sarcophagus. You have to use these cards in the deck to be able to get out your copy of your Spirit of the Pharaoh. We then play 3 copies of King Sarcophagus. King Sarcophagus is an amazing 3-of in the build that basically gets our horse monsters into the graveyard so we can summon them back to our side of the field. By sending a card from our hand to the graveyard, we can send a horse monster from our deck to the graveyard, and then when we control this card, we can instantly bring back our horse monsters to our side of the field from the graveyard, which is so cool. This card is amazing as it helps us get cards in the graveyard and gets our horse monsters into the graveyard as well, so we can just bring them back and go in for game. We then play 3 copies of Zombie World. Zombie World is an amazing 3-of in the build. It basically turns every monster on the field and in the graveyard into zombies, which is a great ability to be able to use to basically be able to go in for game because all of our monsters are zombies, and it's very easy to control the board with this card because everything will be a zombie. We then play 3 copies of Super Polymerization. Super Poly just works really well with our copy of Zombie World because it helps us go into Nether Soul Dragon by using 2 monsters on the field, which is so easy to do. And this card is basically just a board breaker in the deck, and it's a really good card to play alongside your copies of Zombie World. We then play 3 copies of Allure of Darkness. Allure of Darkness is great in this deck to help us dig into the deck for the exact cards that we need, so we can basically dig for our copies of the first sarcophagus so we can summon out Spirit of the Pharaoh. So, that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get in to the traps. So for the traps, we're just going to be playing 3, and that's going to be 3 copies of the first sarcophagus. This card is the card that starts your entire combo to summon out the Spirit of the Pharaoh. This card has the ability during each of your opponent's end phases, you place 1 card face up on your side of the field from your hand or deck in the order of the second sarcophagus and the third sarcophagus, and if one of your sarcophaguses is removed from your side of the field, all of them are sent to the graveyard. Also, when you have all 3 sarcophaguses on your side of the field, you send all of them to the graveyard, and then you get to special summon Spirit of the Pharaoh from your hand or deck, which is an awesome ability to instantly get Spirit of the Pharaoh out on your side of the field, so you can basically go in for game, and it's so nostalgic to be able to summon it out to your side of the field. So, that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get in to the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to start off with a single copy of Flying Mary. Flying Mary is a great card to play in a zombie deck because this card has the ability you can actually target a level 5 or higher zombie monster that's banished from your graveyard, place this card in your spell and trap card zone as a face-up continuous spell if you do special summon that monster, and while this card is a continuous spell card, you can actually target a level 5 or higher zombie monster that you control and destroy a monster your opponent controls with attack less than or equal to that monster, which is a really cool ability. We then play a single copy of Yugioh, the Absolute Zero Mayakashi. This card is amazing in the deck as a 1-of, just as a big boss monster to be able to make, and it's super easy to summon this build, and also it negates any activated effects of your opponent's banished monsters, and if a monster is special summoned from the graveyard or a monster effect is activated in the graveyard, you can actually target one of their face-up monster on the field and change its attack point to 0 if you negate that monster's effect, and use that effect up to twice per turn, which is so cool. With my single copy of Vampire Fascinator, this card is great in the deck. If it's a link summon, you actually target a monster in your opponent's graveyard and special summon to your field in defense. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for rest turn except for zombies, which is totally fine because we're basically just going to climb into our copy of Yugioh, which is really cool. With my single copy of Vampire Sucker, because this card helps us draw cards, which is really nice. 1 copy of SP Little Knight. SP Little Knight is so good in this deck to basically just use this card as a double interruption. With play a single copy of the Zombie Vampire. Zombie Vampire is really good in this deck as a 1-of, but something you do have to watch out for with this card is you don't want to send your copies of your Sarcophagus cards to the graveyard, so you really got to watch out for that as you're playing this deck. So you want to use this card later on in the game to mill more cards to the graveyard so you can basically go in for game, but it's still a really good option in the deck to be able to make because it does mill 4 cards from the top of both players' decks to the graveyard, and then we get to bring back a monster from the graveyard to our side of the field. Now, a card I do like to summon in this deck over the copy of the Zombie Vampire is actually Coach King. Coach King is really good because this card actually draws cards instead of milling them to the graveyard, which is so cool to be able to do, is you can actually draw in the deck so you can get to your copy of the first Sarcophagus so we can start all of our plays going in for our copy of the Spirit of the Pharaohs. This card is really good because you actually draw 3 cards in a turn and do 800 points of damage for every monster that you draw, which is just absolutely amazing. I'm going to see a copy of number 90 because this card is basically a walking negate for monsters, which is just really good to be able to make. 1 copy of Chaos Angel. Chaos Angel's great in this deck as a 1-of because it's so easy to summon this deck. So we have so many different level 2 monsters and level 8 monsters we can use in this deck to basically just step into this card so easily. And it's just a really big boss monster that can basically just summon itself out to your side of the field without even using a tuner, which is insane. We then play a single copy of Red Eyes Zombie Dragon Lord. Since we are playing Zombie World, this card is just amazing in the deck because during your opponent's turn, quick effect, you can target a zombie monster in your grave and then special summon it back to your side of the field. And if this card's in the grave, you can banish a zombie monster that you control and then special summon this card, which is an amazing effect. And I see a copy of Skeletal Dragon Felgram. This card is really good because if it's special summon, you can target a monster your opponent controls or in their graveyard and banish it. If a monster is special summoned from the grave while this card's on the field, you can actually target one of their face-up monster on the field and negate its effects until the end of the turn, which is a great ability. Play a single copy of Immortal Dragon because this card is a tuner monster that is basically a walking foolish burial to send the exact zombie you need into the graveyard, which is amazing to be able to do. And you can level manipulate itself so you can go for more synchro plays. And then for our Super Poly targets, playing a single copy of our Nether Soul Dragon. Very easy to summon if you have your copy of Zombie Roll on the field and you activate your copy of Super Poly. You basically use 2 of your opponent's monsters to step into this card because they will be zombies when Zombie World's on the field. Play a single copy of Garua because it's one of the best Super Poly targets in the game, and the exact same reason as Mud Dragon. Mud Dragon and Garua are basically the best Super Poly targets in the entire game, which is why we play both of them in the deck. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed. This deck is super fun to be able to play. If you guys have never played a Spirit of the Pharaoh deck, you guys should definitely give this deck a try because it's absolutely insane to be able to play because it's so nostalgic to be able to play, and it actually very easily summons out the Spirit of the Pharaoh to your side of the field, which is really, really cool because it's so easy to be able to draw into your copy of the first Sarcophagus. So that's good for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell and so you can become part of Notification Squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.